public budget hearing. That was a very good conversation and dialogue. But this is a regular voting meeting of the Board of Education. We are starting up, and I call the meeting to order. And I do want to let folks know we will not be going into executive session. We have no reason to do so this evening, and therefore we will not. So just as we get to the modifications of the agenda, we're a bit early for our public comment period. So I would offer that we, and if we could have move and second it, but I would offer that we just slide down and go through the consent agenda and then come back to any public comment before we move on with the rest of our meeting, which is not extensive. We've gone through our major items over the last few weeks, meaning the budget and getting ready for next week, which is May 18th. And polls are open from noon till 9 p.m. At your local voting venue. And we will see what the folks in the community think about our budget for 21-22. And so,
Rob,
Moira,
can I offer
Sean, go ahead.
Thanks. A modification to the agenda, and that we modify agenda item 4 to be 4.1 public comment period, 4.2 board responses, 4.3 student reps, and 4.4 board responses.
Second.
Second by Moira and Chris. So we'll just go ahead and call the roll, and we'll get kind of get an idea who's with us tonight. And then
Rob, should we also modify the agenda to move up 5.1 consent agenda above 4.1?
correct.
Would that be 3.3?
No, we switch it to be 4 and then make what I said 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, and 5.4.
Right,
Okay.
that'll be fun. So I think we've got it. Everyone knows what we're attempting to do. So we're going to go ahead and call the roll. Thanks.
Rob Ainsley,
Yes.
Erin Croyle,
Yes.
Sean Eversley Bradwell,
Yes.
Eldred Harris,
Yes.
Nicole LaFave,
Yes.
Moira Lang,
Yes.
Chris Malcolm,
Yes.
Ann Reichland,
Yes.
Patricia Wazalou.
Yes.
Very good, thanks. So we will go to consent agenda that is presented this evening and accept a motion and a second regarding that consent agenda, and then we can talk about it.
I move the consent agenda for adoption.
Second.
Thank you, Pat. Second by Moira. So it is not the longest consent agenda, a stark contrast to our last meeting, but there are personnel reports and other items here. Any questions? Anything we need to discuss? That pause that Sean has timed, I think is over. So if we could go ahead and call the roll.
Rob Ainsley,
Yes.
Erin Croyle,
Yes.
Sean Eversley Bradwell,
Yes.
Eldred Harris,
Yes.
Nicole LaFave,
Yes.
Moira Lang,
Yes.
Chris Malcolm,
Yes.
Ann Reichland,
Yes.
Patricia Wazalou.
Yes.
All right, thanks, everyone. Well, I've got about 5 of 7. Do we wish to see if anyone has,
We do have 2 people.
folks are there ready to ask questions or make their comments?
Somebody signed up, I believe it was supposed to be in person, Mitch Bauer.
All right, I think it was part of the budget hearing, I believe. And I
Yeah,
think
but his issue was something different, so,
okay,
but he's not here.
okay.
Okay, and then via Zoom, we have Liz Quadrozzi.
I'm so embarrassed. I tried to get it at the end of the budget hearing, but I guess you were right, Chris. Just is what happens. Two things. You referenced Jen Gondak making a presentation at the finance committee meeting, and I just want to publicly say that she's amazing. Love working with her. She is so strong and so knowledgeable, and we should all learn from her every day. So I just want to give her that public shout out. My second thing is that we have kids at the secondary schools who want to return for 4 days, as they've been told that they can, but the barriers are transportation and the amount of space that we have in our building in terms of when the kids have lunch and when there's sections of the schedule when they're all together. And that seems like something that should have been worked out before we offered the 4-day-a-week option to kids. We want all the kids to come 4 days, 5 days, but there's some barriers in place, and I'm wondering how we can address this to get more kids in the building.
Thank you, Liz. We'll have board responses in a few minutes to anything. Other folks, anything else signed up? Do we want to board responses to Liz's statement?
First of all, I didn't catch who she was singing the praises of.
Right, if we could repeat that, please.
Jen Gondak.
Oh, yeah. Jen. Okay, good to hear. Thank you.
I'm not going to be able to answer her question. I am willing to echo her sentiment. Jen is absolutely amazing, and we definitely value her as part of our ICSD community. I think we've been ongoingly discussing the fact that it is a moving target as we get children back into the building, especially regarding transportation. I hate to pawn this off, but I bet our administrators would be more apt to speak to that process than I would be. And our ultimate goal is to get everyone back into the buildings, children, teachers, aides, as quickly as we can, responsibly, safely. So if anyone else wants to chime in, please help a brother out.
Anyone else?
Well, I definitely would like to hear some
Yeah,
of our
we've,
administrators speak to.
If
these
I'm
issues.
understanding the question or the statement appropriately, the 4-day per week for young people, we said we would do when and as possible. Again, right now we're committing to getting our young people back, as many who wish to come back, for 2 days. So yes, there are some barriers to 4 days for some young people and more for many more. So yeah, we're working through that, and hopefully we can get all those young people who we want to be back for 4 days a week back, and overcoming the barriers that are in place, i.e. transportation, i.e. space, which we've had all year, that are preventing us from having all of our babies back for 4 days.
And would just want to add as a reminder, it's not the Ithaca City School District setting space and density limits. It's the Center for Disease Control. It's the New York State Board of Health. These are not issues that we can basically decide on our own, that we are going to follow a different set of guidelines. Like everyone else, I hope very much to have all of our children, all of our teachers, all of our staff back safely in buildings. We've done very, very well at the elementary level with smaller buildings, smaller populations. It is a complex issue, and we are limited by space. And I hope that those limits will decrease very quickly over the summer and not have to come back to present levels.
Any other board responses? No? They wish to? If not, then
Rob, I'll simply echo what's been said. I think the privilege of watching other school districts also negotiate this, other colleges and universities negotiate this. It's a changing target every day. I've already made mention, I'm teaching in a lecture hall designed for 130 students that has a maximum capacity of 23. And so as we find the CDC sets a 3-foot guideline, but the local Tompkins County Health Department has recently said that that may be okay, but we are trying to find various agencies that all agree. I want our community to know this is not from a lack of want or desire or thinking or planning. It's we're trying our best to adhere to what we hope could happen, not making promises that we can't keep. So this is an ongoing conversation. This is an ongoing situation. We have not been in a pandemic such as this and in the United States anyway, in over 100 years. And so we are still working our way through it, and all of us are at a place of exhaustion and want it to end and to finish up the school year. So thank you to our teachers, to our cafeteria workers, to our facilities crew, to our parents, to our administrators. Folks are grinding and want to find the best for all of our young folks to move forward.
thanks, Sean. Nicole, do you want to weigh in or offer? If not, that's okay. I was just checking the hybrid model and those who are attending at home. But if I'm not hearing anything here and I'm not hearing anything there, then we can go ahead and move on to student reps if students are still out there.
Hi. Yeah, so at school, there are a number of things going on. The senior class officers are planning a senior mixer in place of prom, which will still have entertainment and food. To stay in line with COVID guidelines, the mixer will have groups of people enter and stay together. This past weekend, the Killer Party musical was also held, and it was a stunning display and collaboration of musical, acting, and editing talent. There will also be a Student of Color Summit on May 21st, planned by the students, which would be a safe space for students of color to share experience and connect with each other. ICSD Active Minds is holding a virtual presentation for Mental Health Awareness Month tomorrow with speaker Diana Chow, who founded Letters to Strangers. The ICSD band made a video recording of Our New Day Begun for the Black Lives Matter mural. So if you want to check that out, I can put that in the chat. And graduation is also being slated for June 17th with students still voting on the speaker. It seems that students will be split into 4 groups with a few spectators in attendance. This too was to be in accordance with COVID guidelines.
As many of you know, COVID vaccines are soon to open up to kids from ages 12 to 15. And already many high schoolers are vaccinated, as well as most teachers. So I guess one question we have is what the district has in mind for any form of a vaccine policy, if at all, for next year, whether COVID vaccines will become mandated and stuff like that in the high school and maybe even the middle school. Another thing is, I guess, kind of continuing the topic of mental health in the budget from the budget hearing. So we didn't get to hear the whole thing, but we did hear about how there's money being set aside to use for mental health support for students that can be used if needed. But we do know that there is an immense need for increased support. So it's not a matter of if, but it's still a little unclear as to how that support will manifest itself. So I guess we're wondering how specifically that money will be used to directly support students in a way that will positively affect everyone in school.
There have been many questions among students regarding school for next year. They have been wondering like where our district is with offering virtual school next year, as well as what next year's learning model will be. Again, I understand that plans are still like underway, but it would be great to receive an update or even new information about learning models for next year. Also, I see on the agenda that there is a new draft of the academic calendar. I'd just like to say thank you for updating the calendar with the new dates of cultural and religious importance. We appreciate seeing a more inclusive and diverse space that represents all students at ICSD. I would also like to broach on the topic of elections. As you may all know that there are like board member elections soon. And from my time this year as a student representative to the board, I have seen that the Board of Education steers and leads many important decisions regarding our school. And since the board has the power to direct what happens with our future in education, I was wondering if it would be possible if students would be able to vote for board members or in like school elections. I'm not sure if this is even possible, as I understand that there are many like rules and regulations surrounding this, but I would just like to bring this up as something to consider for the future. And that's all from us.
Any other, great to hear from you, all three of you, and board responses.
I'll take a couple of, I won't speak to everything, but about the board elections. If you are registered to vote, anybody who's registered to vote is welcome to participate and encouraged to participate in the elections. So I think that's the main thing. So the second thing, I'll just talk a little bit about vaccines and the requirements. What that implies is that would be a state level decision. The current situation with the vaccines is they are still an emergency. They've been, approved on an emergency basis, which is different than, say, like the measles vaccine, which it was, permanently approved. But any requirement in terms of entry to school based on the vaccine would be something that would be probably a statewide conversation, and they would probably tell schools what they could or could not do. And I would personally be very surprised if they would require it. I don't think they could require it if it is not officially and permanently approved. So yeah, it'll be kind of interesting statewide conversation, actually.
Other responses?
I can go next to Grace's point. I reached out to Principal Trumbull about a week or two ago to see if LACS and IHS would be interested in doing a voters drive for any seniors or anyone who's 18 or older. I'm still waiting to hear back. So I put that plug in his ear about voters registration. To Adam's point regarding mental health services, and to Liz's point earlier, we do have the funds and we know the need is there. So I think that we should be proactive regarding what the needs of students are, whether that is having additional deans or counselors in our schools versus waiting for students to come back to school and for students and psychologists and social workers to be scrambling. So as I am on the Tompkins County Human Service listserv and seeing all the new positions that are coming up for the new school year, I think that we can be proactive to plan what our students will need. And if
the specific FTEs we're planning for aren't necessarily needed in specific buildings. I think those folks can be floated around to different buildings to provide support where it's needed. Yeah, that's what I have. Thank you.
Rob, I have one more thing to say about voting registration, and I wonder if Tricia could speak to that, because I think people still register to vote? Because the rules regulating it are different for schools than, say, for the state or statewide elections. So what are the regulations now in terms of somebody who's not yet registered but wanted to register to vote?
The last day to register to vote was May 4th.
Oh, okay.
But I would add that if you are registered, if you're 18 and you are registered, that you can vote at the regular polling places will be open, and the hours for voting in person?
12 to 9.
12 to 9. And they're on the budget mailer, which should have come to everyone's homes. The polling places are listed. And in addition, if you want an absentee ballot, you can pick one up at Tricia's office, the board clerk office in the board building. And one thing that Ann mentioned to some folks earlier today, that it might be good to call or email Tricia to let her know you're coming, to make sure she's there.
They have until May 18th, 5 p.m.
Till 5 p.m. on
May 18th.
May 18th, yes, the day to turn in an absentee ballot.
Right. Theoretically, Tricia, you could come in and request a ballot, fill it out and hand it to you, right?
Yes.
On that day, right? So you don't have to put it in the mail. You can deliver those ballots to the board building throughout the day. But by 5 p.m., 5 p.m., it's not 9, right? To clarify, right, the voting closes at 9 p.m., but the absentee ballots have to be in the board clerk's hands by 5 o'clock. There is anything received after that cannot be counted. Right. So there are rules that have not changed dramatically. Other comments?
I'll give a quick response.
Go ahead,
Pat,
Sean.
please. My quick response is we've been having a lot of conversations in education policy circles about private and public institutions, whether or not they can require vaccines. It is interesting to note that both CUNY and SUNY universities and colleges have just required students to be vaccinated prior to enrollment. With that being said, only Pfizer, as I am aware of currently, and folks may know better than me, have been cleared for 12 to 15-year-olds. So part of it will be highly dependent upon whether or not it's even safe for young people to be vaccinated. But there is a possibility, as Ann said, that the state may require vaccines similar to measles, mumps, tuberculosis, you name it. Though similar to other vaccines, there are medical exemptions. And so what we have found in other areas that there is a medical exemption for folks not to take the vaccine, but we'll be knowing more from both at the state level of what that looks like. Alex, the idea about a senior mixer is, again, one of those creative ideas that I hadn't even thought about. So I wish folks great success. I hope it, I know it does not take the place of a senior prom or a junior prom or a senior ball, but that's a great way to approach it. And I hope that is a great evening for all. In terms of mental well-being, as Nicole said, we should be proactive. I also know we've been negotiating, again, consistent changes in medical and well-being fields, that it's only recently that televisitations have been covered by insurance. And so prior to last year, you couldn't do visits with your social worker, psychologists, and have it be covered online for most insurance companies. So we're going to be figuring out what else do we need beyond sort of people in person, beyond folks here. And so I'm looking forward to what that looks like as well. And to Grace's point, two things. One, I will be humbly asking that we table, this will be later on, our calendar vote to make sure that we are as inclusive as possible. And looking forward to the International Club, if they have anything else to add that we're missing. we've had some conversations with our administrators and with Mrs. Bergman, who's been phenomenal. And I've been looking at other colleges, institutions. And in years prior, while students who are under the age of 18 have not been allowed to participate in board elections, which includes the budget vote, both LACS and IHS have run mock elections. That has been something that's happened before. I realize it does not get to what you want in terms of actually participating in what's there, but we are, as Rob said, we are have to abide by the laws and regulations of New York State school board elections, and that's one of them is who is registered to vote. So thank you all for sharing. Looking forward to how we move forward.
Oh, I just wanted to add to the question of voting. This seems to come up every year. An election's coming up. Oh, how can we vote? When can we vote? What was the cutoff? I would respectfully suggest to our really wonderful, active student reps that there be some kind of mass movement at the high school to register to vote the day you turn 18. You know, you turn 18, vote, not just in school board elections, but every election. A powerful tool.
I actually think too, there were some changes in New York State, and I don't remember them offhand, but I think that there's some pre-registering to vote. I think you turn a certain age, and I think, and I also think in government classes, are we still doing it where those who are able to vote can register to vote in our government classes? So I second what you're saying, though. All elections are really important, and it has such impacts on your life. So I think that whether or not it's a school board, it's a city council, it's county government, it's not only, the national elections. I think we kind of put a lot of emphasis on national elections, but what happens at a local level, that really affects you a lot. So I'm so excited that you're thinking about it, and I encourage everybody to register to vote and participate.
I'll add one more thing about voting. So for anyone, not just students, who is registered to vote and is planning on voting, if you want to get further insight into the candidates and their positions on various issues, there are 2 forums happening via Zoom this week. One is sponsored by the Village at Ithaca, and that is on Thursday night from 6 to 7:30. And you can find the link by going to the Village at Ithaca's website and looking under upcoming events. And the other is sponsored by the Ithaca Teachers Association. That's happening tomorrow via Zoom from 6 to 7:30. And I believe if you go to Facebook and the ITA's page on Facebook, that they have a link to their forum.
Thanks, Maura. E, you good? Anything?
Thanks, Rob. I'll just add that I'm not an expert on this, but the last time I paid attention, Grace, there was a bill circulating in Albany to lower the voting age to 16. Obviously hasn't been signed into law. I don't know where it stands, but there's another area where you might want to bring that up to the Legislative Advocacy Committee and let us take a look and get back to you about where it stands. I do know that 16-year-olds in New York State are now allowed to pre-register, meaning you do what you have to do now, and then when you turn 18, you're automatically eligible to vote. So there's been some movement and conversation. Don't want you to leave this meeting thinking that there has been no movement and that we don't know anything about it. So that's my suggestion. Bring it to our committee and we'll take a look at it. See if we can do something to help move it forward.
Thanks, E. Not seeing anyone raise their hands at home, meaning from board members. Grace had another question in her comments that I think we should address. And Dr. Brown, we've talked about it a little bit. What does school look like next year? And what is, obviously there is the wish what school would look like. But Dr. Brown, we're going to roll into your comments, and you're an administrator with a microphone. So I'm going to ask, okay, what does school look like as we go into the fall? And I wish that there is no, this hybrid learning model goes away, and that we will be in person and perhaps also an option to be remote. But hybrid is gone. So Dr. Brown, that is what I would like to have happen. But Dr. Brown, if you could, then you can roll into your comments that may be totally separate from this.
Well, yeah, thank you for the setup. And that request from my board president is what we're going to talk about. And Ms. Tucker, please feel free to jump in here. This is a continuation of the conversation we had at our last board meeting around learning forward ICSD. And let me be very clear, we are operating under the assumption that all of our young people and staff are going to be back in the fall. That is where we're going to get back to that model, but we also look to have some other options available as well. But the hybrid approach where we are, like we're doing right now, teaching in person and simultaneously teaching virtually, that is not a model unless our state comes out and mandates it that we want to continue with. So an option to be back in person and some virtual opportunities that we want to explore that are going to be innovative and will meet the needs of our learners and provide some level of choice, voice and choice for our families is something that we're exploring. But please note that will take a significant amount, that's going to take a significant amount of resources and planning and time to get better and better at it. Ms. Tucker, would you add some things that you're engaging with educators every day about this topic?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Good to see you all. The last few weeks, I've had the honor of working with a number of educators within the ICSD, teachers, education support professionals, administrators, to look at some of the potential models for the fall for young people and staff. So at the elementary level, we are looking at a predominantly in-person model, right? Continuing that. And right now our discussions are really revolving around what might a virtual only model look like district-wide, and supporting a district-wide approach, say perhaps a district-wide first grade virtual classroom, et cetera. So we're really in the beginning stages of that. The group has been really thoughtful, really engaged in very deep, meaningful conversation about, those students that may have medical needs, and knowing that our 2 to 11-year-olds likely won't be eligible for vaccination until at least September, which is what we learned last week. We recognize that may need to continue in the fall. So that's where we are, again, very early stages, again, for elementary, and again, very early stages for secondary. But it's been clear from students and from staff that continuing the concurrent or hybrid simultaneous model of teaching and learning really doesn't meet the needs of all of our kids, right? We're always shortchanging one, right? And so we want to avoid that right? That is not what anyone wants, and that's really not what we're planning. So we're looking at, I will say as well, the announcement last night that students who are ages 12 to 15 are eligible for the Pfizer vaccine has been very welcome, very exciting news for us, because it really opens up more in-person possibilities and adds, we often talk about COVID-19 mitigation, spread mitigation, right, through this idea of layers of Swiss cheese, right? So physical distancing, masking, increased HVAC, screening protocols, surveillance testing, et cetera. These are additional layers of Swiss cheese. Well, vaccination adds multiple layers of Swiss cheese simultaneously, right? And so we know that it's going to be much safer for young people to be in spaces from 12 to 18-year-olds, right? So at the secondary level, we recognize that because of science and because of the vaccine rollout, the wonderful work that our county has done in relationship to that, that virtual learning, frankly, will not be necessary in the same way, right? So That's likely what we're anticipating. Dr. Brown is absolutely correct. Unless the state mandates a particular model, we're looking at in-person teaching and learning. We recognize that there are some students who may need particular medical exemptions, as board members were indicating earlier. It's also important to note that right now, those who are not recommended to receive the Pfizer vaccine, there's really two categories there. Those who experience severe anaphylaxis during the first dose, and those who are allergic to any of the ingredients present within the Pfizer vaccine. It's very important to note that there's no live virus in the vaccine. It's all constituted of chemical compounds, very easily accessible on the website, and that you can see what the ingredients are. So given all of that, we are looking at very, very few students who may need particular accommodations. And we have a process that we've utilized for a number of years and to possibly work through that. And again, so we're talking at these wonderful fall 2020 learning models committee meetings. We're putting more together. We're really thinking about language and communication, and then bringing students and families in and their feedback and their input more formally than into the process as well. And we're also looking at, what virtual options could exist creatively, as Dr. Brown said, potentially in the future, but not doing a concurrent model. Does that help?
Thank you, Ms. Dowd.
Okay.
Lily, can I have
one other item?
question?
Yeah.
So in terms of the Pfizer and students or children being able to be vaccinated between the ages of 12 and 15, are you all planning to do any kind of informational sessions with families about the vaccination as we think about the vaccination rate lowering down? It's less about access to the vaccination, and it's now more about people's comfort levels, their apprehension. And I don't think it's necessarily based in folks not believing in science, but it has to do with the history of vaccinations, the history or experimentation of medicine on Black and brown bodies. So as we're informing folks about these vaccinations, do we plan on having community conversations about what it means for families and for them to know what they're actually putting in their bodies and for them to feel comforted in the decisions that they're making?
Actually, that's a great question, Nicole, thank you. We were actually talking about that this morning with other superintendents in the region, along with Frank Krupa, and our medical director, Dr. Melissa Dindali, in order to get more information out and engage with families around vaccination. So we're again in the beginning planning stages of that, and beginning planning stages of even potentially offering vaccination clinics on site through the Tompkins County Health Department. So they would be providing it, but they would be utilizing our spaces.
Thank you, Ms. Talbot. One more item, and if there's another question, just a special shout out and a thank you. Thank you to our Mayor Savante Myrick for recognizing our young people and declaring Thursday, May 6th as, let me make sure I get this right, Children's Day. We had some fourth graders at Enfield Elementary School. And like many of our young people in the school district, we know how to advocate. We know how to solve problems. Our young people wrote a letter to our great mayor and asked him to declare a special day for children, just like Mother's Day and Father's Day. And like CEOs of companies, like other leaders throughout the country, they responded. And our young people got what they wished, and they have a proclamation. You folks can go to our website and see the actual letter that our young people wrote to the mayor, and also see the proclamation and more information about that. But just a special shout out and a thank you that brought much joy and a smile to my heart. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Ainsley.
Thanks, Dr. Brown, and thanks, Lily, for the update. And we'll go on to school district business. There are a few things we should get through. Just wanted to clarify, since we are doing this hybrid model meeting, didn't quite hear Sean. Did Sean request that we not vote on the calendar tonight? We're going to punt it to, and the properly removing it and see, are we delaying it a month? Or Sean, how do you want to handle this? If you could help, that'd be great.
Yeah, thank Rob. I wanted to make sure we had opportunity to discuss it. But ultimately, I'm going to make a motion to table it to make sure that we vote on something that we think is reflective of our entire community. I know that there are student organizations that are continuing to look at it. I've been looking at a number of university and college calendars that do something similar. It's a great addition. We're working towards something to be much more culturally relevant, but we are not in an immediate hurry to pass this meeting. We can pass it next meeting as well. So, but I want to make sure that board members have an opportunity to discuss the updated academic calendar. And yes, I will be making a motion to table it. And for my board colleagues, tabling means that it will be automatically put on our next board meeting agenda for a vote.
Well, thanks, Sean. And we do need a second, but tabling, as Sean has described and in practice, and then this has to show up on our next meeting's agenda. It's not, well, we'll table it and we'll get to it. It's by procedure, it does have to be on the next board meeting agenda, so it will be there. So we need a second on Sean's motion.
I will second.
Oh, Pat did it loudly.
Well, that's because I noticed that my holidays have not yet been recognized, and I'm going to pencil them in.
You go, Pat. You know. Very good. So we will discuss, and we'll have an opportunity to review and get more input and have more discussion at our next meeting, which will be at the end of May. But we'll go ahead and vote on the motion as seconded.
Rob Ainsley,
Yes.
Erin Croyle,
Yes.
Sean Eversley Bradwell,
Thank you for the work, and yes.
Eldred Harris,
Yes.
Nicole LaFave,
Yes.
Moira Lang,
Yes.
Chris Malcolm,
Yes.
Ann Reichland,
Yes.
Patricia Wasley.
Yes.
Very good. Thanks, everyone. And we'll move on to the next item, which is policy 2350. And Sean, if you, I believe the policy committee and discussion and whatever went over this. I was there, I think. So go ahead.
Yes, Rob, thank you. This was a policy that the board has already voted on for a first reading. It went back to the policy committee last Tuesday. The policy committee again supported the change. And this is a change in response to our student reps and their request to alter our board meeting agenda. Again, we recognize that our board meetings are not necessarily the most inclusive way to participate in communication in multiple directions, and we will find other ways to make that happen. With that being said, our student reps asked a great question: if we can have public comments, board responses, student rep updates, board responses. And so what this change to this policy does is reflect that very change, that we would have two board responses, one after public comment and one after our student rep updates. And so this is a policy revision for a second reading and adoption. Of course, we can have conversation about it, but for the moment, I move policy 2350 board responses after public comment as presented.
Second. You can have that one, Myra.
Second by Moira, since she was closer, I heard her first. So. But thank you, Sean. Thank you, Moira. I remember this now. We did review this, and we have modified our agenda over the last month or so to reflect what the policy should be, and opportunity to go ahead and make it so. Moira, anything to add? Are you-
Nope.
Okay. Anyone else? We're good. So second reading, Tricia, please.
Rob Ainsley,
Yes.
Erin Croyle,
Yes.
Sean Eversley Bradwell,
Yes.
Eldred Harris.
Yes.
Nicole LaFave,
Yes.
Moira Lang,
Yes.
Chris Malcolm,
Yes.
Ann Reichland,
Yes.
Patricia Wazalin.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone. And last business item on the agenda before we get to any other business that we may need to address. Central New York School Boards Association Annual Meeting. Those of us who wish to attend do have to sign up and reserve a spot. There are 3 of us that are going to go. Moira, are you going in person?
Yes, I'm going in person.
All right, way to rock. All right. Well, sorry.
Wait, is there an option, a non-person, in-person option or remote option?
There is in-person and virtual option, right?
Ah, Is the fee for remote as well?
It is less.
$20. I would go to the remote option.
It's $20 compared to $50 in full disclosure. And actually, it's an opportunity to hear from the new
The new executive director.
The executive director.
Yeah, I would have to go to the remote option. I can't make it to
Okay.
the full option. I don't know if that's possible to add at this point.
We would we would add you to the list and in full disclosure.
Are you going in person?
Yep. I have a car. I can give you a ride.
Sounds good to me.
We try to be efficient and carpool. Okay. And it's probably more than anyone needs to know out there. But it is an opportunity to hear from other board members and interact in a responsible distance way. But it'll be, we will try to go. Sean Eversley Bradwell is also signed up. So it is, and there's 4 of us will participate. And
I don't think that this is a surprise. I don't know, but last year, the in-person meeting was canceled, and I don't even know that they had a
Right, I
virtual,
don't
they
think so.
didn't.
Yeah.
No.
But last year, Sean Eversley Bradwell was supposed to be honored as the representative from the component districts of TST BOCES for his outstanding contributions as a board member. So he is going to be honored this year.
so that's why Sean's going. Okay. No, well, it was well deserved. Well, frankly, this year, last year.
Any old
and-
year.
Right, exactly. So I think, is Sean still there? Oh,
He's going.
but so that's great. And we will need a motion and a second.
I move to approve expenditure for attendance at the Central New York State School Boards Association annual meeting, May 26th, for the following board members: Rob Ainsley, Moira Lang, Sean Eversley Bradwell, and Ann Reichland.
Pat is always so quick to.
Oh, second.
Second by Pat and Tricia. I don't think we need to discuss this thing.
Rob Ainsley,
Yes.
Erin Croyle,
Yes.
Sean Eversley Bradwell,
Yes.
Eldred Harris,
Yep.
Nicole LaFave,
Yes.
Moira Lang,
Yes.
Chris Malcolm,
Yes.
Ann Reichland,
Yes.
Patricia Wazalin.
Yes.
Very good. Thanks, everyone. Dr. Brown, others, is there anything else we need to address tonight?
That's it.
Before we go ahead and let everybody go and it's still light out?
Wow.
Special, well, upcoming events, basically, yeah, it's the annual budget vote and elections are next Tuesday. We will point out that the facilities and finance work sessions are moved to Wednesday. And we will also be verifying the vote on Wednesday. We will do that remotely. That is still, we will have a quorum, but we do need to verify the vote, typically giving Tricia as much time as she needs, but hopefully between facilities and finance, we will have a special voting meeting to verify the election results. expect to see that. So those are the dates upcoming that are critical and important to the future of the district. Anything else? Are we good? Very good. Thanks, everyone. We're done here and we're done there, and have a great night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Night. Lily, I got to tell you something.